Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the 21st episode of Ada the Autistic Alien. I'm super happy that you're here with me today again. And yeah, just to warn you, this will be an episode that might be a little bit all over the place because I didn't really have time to plan anything and I kind of wanted to just do it freestyle. So, as I told you, on Monday, so 2 days ago, I got my diagnosis, and I want to share that in today's episode with you. Plus, I want to share my insights on like different kinds of like or types of being in the spectrum or having like a personality disorder and stuff like that. Okay, so my diagnosis is that I am not autistic. I am in the spectrum, but like when my therapist talked to my mom and like talked about my childhood with her, it just appeared to him that there was not enough at odds with me. Like his diagnosis would be that I am hypersensitive. So maybe I think I talked about being highly sensitive before. And he thinks that with me, it might be even stronger than high sensitivity. And when you are kind of exposed to that much information all your life, and you're not really growing up in an environment that understands what kind of information you're actually always exposed to, that can lead to behavior that seems autistic. Yeah. And the other thing, like, he suggested two things from his side. Like, the main thing is that he says, like, like you maybe are 0.01% in that spectrum. But this is because it overlaps with other things that he more thinks I might have or had during my life. Yeah. And the things that he suggested is that on one hand, he strongly believes that I might be highly intelligent, which I never like thought of before, to be honest. Like I always knew that like autistic people are very intelligent, or like some of them like have this like I believe all of them are like on different levels. And it's interesting to me because I studied intelligence for myself for a long time now, because I believe there are various ways of intelligence. Yeah, like for example, I am mentally very strong, so that would mean like I'm very intelligent in the way that we currently think intelligence is in this world. Yeah. So, and to me, that just made a lot of sense because then I Googled it, of course, after I went out. And actually, the symptoms, some of the social symptoms of being in the autistic spectrum and being highly intelligent, if you were not like if you were not like diagnosed or found to be highly intelligent during your childhood and then being exposed to like-minded kids, the risk that you feel lonely and that you have struggles with social relationships and keeping them steady is there. So a lot of like the social symptoms I have, a lot of the symptoms I have towards like humanity. And like it was such a big epiphany for me, because I never, like whenever I studied intelligence, I never measured it. Like somehow the way I do my own way of science or of studying things is rarely being about measurement. I don't really care about measurement mostly. I care about what is it and how much of it is there. Like, of course, I can tell, like, for example, that I have friends who are very creatively intelligent. Yeah, like MacGyvers. Yeah, there's something broken and they know how to fix it without even spending a cent. and they're like super crafty. Yeah. And I call that the haptic intelligence. I don't know if haptic is a word in English. I just know that haptisch is a word in German. And it's the like the sense you get when you grab something or when you touch something with your hands. That's haptic. I don't like, just so you understand, even though the word is maybe wrong. And I believe there is like a haptic intelligence, so like kind of a physical sense intelligence, so to speak. And some people have that, so they are very crafty, yeah. And then other people have very strong mental intelligence. And then there are other people who have a very strong emotional intelligence. Yeah, and you can actually Google that. I'm not the only one that looked into these things. So there are various ways of like being intelligent. Yeah, and for me, it was just never about. I think it's because I really don't like competition. I don't like. I don't know why. Like maybe because maybe I got compared a lot in my childhood, but I just really don't care about competition. And like I like to win sometimes, but it's not like I have to do things that I can win at to feel good or anything. Anyways, but I think that's also because my sense of self-worth rather comes from like comparing myself to myself and where I've been and where I want to go or what I want to become. Anyways, now I lost the plot. Where was I? Okay, I got it again. So I never measured intelligence because I'm not really into competition. And when he told me that I might be highly intelligent, like it was weird, because I was like, I know that I'm highly sensitive. Like it's not something that can really get diagnosed the way that I now got diagnosed to not be autistic. But you can tell, like still my therapist can tell and other therapists could tell before. And so before I was always called highly sensitive, and because I have this conditioning of all my life that being sensitive is something bad, but being intelligent is something good. Yeah, that's my conditioning. So being highly sensitive was always like kind of feeding into a certain minority complex I might have. And being told that I'm highly intelligent didn't feed into like a wrong ego or anything, but it just made me understand so many things. And it made me understand that, fuck, like, I think a lot of the bad feelings I have towards humanity are because I believe they are as intelligent as I am. I believe all my life that everybody was capable to see the things I see, connect everything the way I connected, and still act the way they acted. So it really blew my mind to understand that. And not in a way of, oh, look at me, I'm so intelligent. No, it's not nice. Like, and that's also something that really hit me hard. That, like, I don't know, I think I would have preferred to tell people that I'm autistic because, like, how do you tell people that? I mean, I can tell you that I'm highly sensitive and I can explain it to you, but telling you that I'm highly intelligent is like, we will test that now. Like, he can't do like an intelligence test with me, but we can do a pre-test. And that's what I'm doing on the 8th of August. So actually on Lionsgate. Isn't it funny? Yeah, I will do that like intelligence test there, so we can like see if I have certain tendencies towards like more intelligence. Like it even feels weird to me to say that because I don't believe like yeah, for sure I met people who I like when I talked to them understood that they were not really capable of following me, but I always thought that then they were just very intelligent in something else. That's how I looked at the world. And I still believe that. Like, and yeah, it's just like, how do you say that? Because it's important. Like, I read through all the symptoms of being highly intelligent and not being like understood as that in your childhood. And I have all the symptoms, like the depression I started to get. Um, like I felt bored all my life. I know that. And like the social things, because I realized that, also like the people I consider my closest friends, like the one thing they have in common is that they are all very intelligent. Like they are all very intelligent in like in a mental way, but also in emotional ways or in creative ways, just as I am. And like again, it's not like I know that this will trigger so many people that maybe have been told that they are stupid some point in their life, and I'm really sorry for that because I don't believe that anyone is stupid. And I also don't believe that this high intelligence is actually that much of a blessing, or like at this point in my life when I look back, for sure maybe it enabled me to build a company on my own without having like actually, yeah, well, I learned that in my apprenticeship, but not like the marketing stuff. Or like for sure it maybe assisted me in like fulfilling some of my own dreams. But I also believe that like my main dream is to like have a family and have like a beautiful life with people I love around me. This doesn't need to be necessarily like my blood family, but like, and I failed to build that so far in a very close sense. I was able to build it in a further sense. Like I know I'm home in a lot of countries on this planet, and I have a couch to sleep on whenever in all of these countries and in all of these places because they belong to humans that I adore dearly and that adore me dearly too. But I didn't manage to build that sense of like family, like very close around me. And that's something that my soul really longs for. And I truly believe that my intelligence sometimes stands in the way of that. Because when he told me that and I went back home and I reflected on it in my journal, I also realized that people have told me before that they thought they were unworthy of my friendship or that they were too stupid to be my friend. And like they told me when they were my friends. So kind of like, wow, Dada, I felt like I wasn't good enough for you before. And they also told me that it wasn't like a vibe I was giving off to them, but it was more like an energy I have around me. And I truly believe that this energy comes because I process so much information. Because, like, the reason my therapist said that I might be highly intelligent is that, like, the way I talked to him in therapy was like not like other people talk to him in therapy like when it's about themselves. Like I was like really like in the subject and I was like talking to him about the diagnosis structure and about what I thought about it and what I learned about it and about all that oxytocin and dopamine and all those things. And he just said like the way I reflect the world points towards me like being highly intelligent. And then it's very interesting that he said that, like there is a certain percentage of highly intelligent people that is also highly sensitive. And like they also like me, they hear better, they smell better, they taste better, like not better, but more. Yeah. Like I don't like in this world also did you recognize that most of times better means more? Or like more means better? And we kind of use these terms interchangeably when it's about like something positive. But like, why is it like that it's better if my senses work stronger? It's actually not if you're constantly overloaded with information and have to be alone all the time, although you might enjoy company because company gets too much so quickly. So yeah, that was very interesting for me because it kind of makes sense, no? That like my brain maybe has more chi in it or more energy that flows through it, or there is something like maybe my synapses are able to process things more quickly, and through that I take in much more information in every second of every minute of my life than other people do. And he said that that's why he coined my condition rather hypersensitive than highly sensitive, because it takes me even more efforts and even more rituals to like stay in place, to not be overwhelmed by the information. And that's why that's where we thought that that's what appeared to be autistic. Yeah. It's like very close to that. Like I even believe that maybe like if my condition was just like 2% stronger or something, maybe I would have been autistic, because what he said is that you were born with that. Like what your mom said about your early childhood, it doesn't point towards autism, but it points towards being born highly sensitive and highly intelligent. That's like something you kind of are born with. And when you process information that way and you grow up in an environment where maybe, like I think my father also has kind of a similar way of processing reality. And but still, like, there is always this thing of not really being understood, or like always being the one that's just too sensitive and not being seen as, wow, I'm just overwhelmed because I process so much more. Then this can lead to like the self-harming behavior that reminded my flatmate also of autism. Yeah, like banging my fists on my head. Yeah. It's just a reaction to that childhood, but it's not like, he said that, I was too interested in the world and in other people to be diagnosed as autistic as a child. And I can totally accept that, because I talked to him also about what I told you guys in the last episode, that, like I can train, like if I would be autistic, I could train to read situations, yeah, throughout my life. Like I could condition that into my system if I'm intelligent enough and social enough. Like if I don't have too much color in that spectrum, so to speak. And then he said, yes, you can like condition part of it, but you wouldn't have that have that in childhood. Yeah. So I know about the mirror neurons, and the mirror neurons in our brain are the ones that make us understand the facial expression of other people, make us understand what they maybe convey without words, what they show with their eyes. And in like empathic people, also people who are empathic because of trauma, the mirror neurons normally are overactive. Yeah, so they kind of like always go too deep into the other people's emotion, although that's not even their place. Yeah, because they had to do that because that was the way to go in the childhood, that they always had to be like empathic towards their parents, so like no bad things would happen. Yeah, and so the mirror neurons are overactive, and so that's like a conditioning. Yeah, that's kind of, let's say, a disorder that came from the conditioning. It's kind of like, let's say, like almost like a personality disorder, but that's a very hard word. It's more like a conditioning that you can overcome with the mirror neurons, but it depends on how strong that was, of course, in a childhood. But when you are born autistic, these mirror neurons just work very differently. And that's why, like, what you, like, maybe you can learn to live with that. And so you would take that test now as an adult and you could work with it. But in childhood, it would have shown that there is like a different way of interaction with other humans. So yeah, I found that very interesting. And like, yeah, like there is one thing that like I have to maybe like rename this podcast now. I have to think about that because I really like the name of it. And I chose it because autistic actually means like enveloped in one's own world. And that still like applies to me. But then also I don't want to make cultural appropriation for people who have autism. So yeah, you have to give me a minute. I hope it's okay if I just don't like delete it right now, because like we have to take a minute to think about how we could frame it now. But I definitely don't want to like, like hurt people that are autistic with having this name in my podcast when I'm not. Yeah. Like we will see what we do with that. But just so you know, like I'm thinking about that. And so the other thing, like I want to talk about, I totally forgot about that, is that like he said that he strongly suggests that I'm like highly intelligent and highly sensitive, and that mixed together with teenage years that were very hard, and like there was a lot of loss, might like have caused that I'm emotionally unstable. And the thing that he now also wants to test, besides my intelligence, is if I have borderline. And we both agreed already that most probably I don't have borderline, but we still want to test it now simply because I thought, look, like I'm on my way to my diagnosis now, or like I have this diagnosis now, but when he suggests something else, because we both know that I don't have ADHD, like there are just like I'm too focused. Like there is something with my brain, but it's not that. So maybe it's really just the high intelligence and the high sensitivity that play in together, and then together with the emotional instability that I kind of have because there was a lot of things going wrong through during my teenage years that could like appear as autistic symptoms, because a lot of it plays into the same category. It's just not exactly the same. So for me, that's really interesting. Anyways, like, and he suggested borderline not mainly because the way I acted now, but because of some events during my teenage years and my early 20s, when I did some weird things that even like to today, I know that this was like, yeah, it was weird. Like I call it like, my therapist back then said it could be like a psychotic episode or a schizophrenic episode. It was only like 2 months or something, or 3 months. And I don't want to share it here because there are other people involved. And I didn't hurt anybody, like physically or anything. But there was just like this very weird thing happening. And like after that, I went to a psychiatrist, to therapy. And that's when like the first time somebody thought about diagnosing me. And she actually, now that I look back, I'm actually happy that she didn't diagnose me back then, because I clearly had borderline symptoms back then. And like I think the reason she didn't do it was because she knew that in the past 8 years, like leading up to this event, I went through so much like pain, and that in a time when your body changes and your world changes and you have to decide what you want to learn to make your living and all of these things, yeah. And so she was like I don't want to get you properly diagnosed at the moment, because I feel like this is an episode. Like this is something that has like kind of been piling up inside of you, and now it just exploded in a very weird way. And because like, emotionally unstable is like a kind of a pre-level to borderline. And like compared to like the high sensitivity is something that you can either be born with or you develop it as a trauma response during childhood. Yeah. And my high sensitivity was something I was born with. Also, high intelligence is something you are born with. Autism is something you are born with. Like, I don't want to go into that whole vaccine thing because I don't, I'm just not informed enough on that. And like, I don't have trustable enough sources about this to like build my opinion. So I just don't have an opinion towards that. And I don't want to cover it here. But like, I don't say that, it can't come otherwise. But generally, like, when we look at it from a only psychological point of view, is you don't get autistic by the age of 12. Yeah, just because when nothing happens. Yeah. Um, but you but a borderline personality is a personality disorder. So that's something different. It's something that develops out of a traumatizing childhood, or other things that happen. It can develop out of that. And the only reason why he suggested that we also check for that is because there were some episodes like in my teenage years where like I contemplated suicide and stuff like that. And he just wanted to like, and also like I know that like my emotions are very impulsive. Yeah. And that's also something that borderline people have. And borderline is actually, there is, in the meanwhile, there is very good therapy for it. It's called dialectical behavior therapy, where you don't judge having a borderline personality disorder, but you rather learn to work with it. Yeah. And you learn, it's a lot about self reflection. And like some of the symptoms I know about borderline because I had a lot of like friends in school that like were being like diagnosed with that or looked at because if they had it because they were like cutting themselves. So um like I know that there are like some ways I might act can remind one of borderline, but then I know that when like for example when I hurt myself, it's not about a physical release. I know that my friends who hurt themselves, they needed a physical release for that pain. And for me, it's like it's very impulsive. I would never plan to hurt myself. I would like when I cut myself, even the tiniest cuts, I go nuts. Like it's like I don't know, like I really feel like, oh my god, I hurt myself so badly. So I could never do that. Um, and another thing that I know that I don't have that borderline people have is this like very, very strong feeling of emptiness. But I know that I had that in my teenage years. Like this feeling of not knowing who I am, not knowing what is good or bad, what is right or wrong. Like also like coming in conflict with the law and stuff like that. Like I don't agree with the law 100%, but still like there's some very stupid things, yeah, that really like yeah, really were like kind of pointing toward a borderline personality. I also did something that I observed a lot of my borderline friends I'm talking about right now are like were like 17, 18 at this like so like it's not that these are like grown ass women that still behave like that, just to say. But like and I did that too. Like, I wasn't able to communicate my needs, so I would use my emotions to manipulate others to fulfill my needs. Yeah. And the thing was that I didn't do it consciously. It was the only way that I knew how to get what I needed. And to me, like, it was really like an episode. Like, I don't know, maybe a year or two when I was like maybe 18 to 20 or something like that. And it was not like that I manipulated people into doing bad things or like whatever, you know, it was more like it was really like childish, stupid stuff. Yeah. Like, but I don't want to judge it that way too. It's just like when you never learn how to communicate yourself and you only got attention as a kid when you were like really upset and sad, that's kind of like as soon as I realized that it was a reaction, like at some point I realized that whenever I wanted attention, I got sad. And then I realized, fuck, like I'm not even like, why does that happen? At first I thought it's so weird. Like I want to like lay that out for you. At first, like when it happened, I thought I was sad because I didn't get attention. And that's only me. Like, I'm not talking about anybody else here, right? And I was like 18 or 17 with all that I already lived through. So, I thought like, oh, I don't get attention, so I become sad. That was like my main go-to thing. And then I got attention because I was sad. Yeah. And at some point, like, I ask myself, like, why do I always get sad when I want attention? And then I realized, oh, fuck, it's the way I get attention. And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to, like, talk about my needs. I don't want to become sad to get attention. I mean, what a fucked up life. You always have to be sad to get attention, right? And so I looked at that, and then I worked through it. And I learned to, like, say, can I get a hug? And I'm still working on that. Like, I'm still not good at that, because I'm not like there is physical touch and there is physical touch, and sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. And like, yeah, I'm like, but like with other things that I need, I'm way better in, like, asking for them. And I'm also, like, way better in communicating how I feel. But I'm still learning too. Like, and that's the, like, we can look at that now. Like, that's the path I took in the past 15 years, from being super unconscious, wanting attention, becoming sad because thinking I don't get attention because I'm not worth it, la 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 la, minority complex says hello, to, oh fuck, I manipulate others to give me attention with being sad. Now, what, like, that's so inauthentic. That's so not a place where I want to be. Totally not. Like, first of all, I don't need anyone's attention if I only get it when I'm not doing good. Yeah? And second of all, I don't want to do bad to get attention. Yeah, and all that things. Yeah, so I worked through that. And then actually becoming someone who can voice their needs, but not being that, like, demanding of the other that they have to fulfill it only because now I finally have the guts to say it. Yeah. So, like, there are so many steps to take on this ladder. Yeah. And, like, for example, also, like, being rejected so many times. And it's so important because I learned to live with rejection and to be okay with rejection. And I think, like, that's the main thing. If you want to get what you want, you have to learn how to be rejected and not take it personally. How to not take it as a push back, but a push forward. Every rejection is a push forward to something that you wished for. And as soon as you take it in, as soon as we take it personally, as if it's against us personally, that's when it starts becoming a pushback. Yeah? So it's rarely what happens. It's mostly what we interpret it to be. Yeah? So, like, also with my diagnosis, like, when he said, you're not autistic, I was there like, okay. I was kind of sad. Like, not because I wanted to be autistic, not at all, but because I was like, fuck, yeah, but then what's wrong with me? Or like, and then I thought of that, like, okay, no, that's not a good way to think that. Like, nothing is wrong with you, honey. It's just like, there's something different. So let's reframe that question. So what's different with me? And then he went on and said that with the high intelligence and the hypersensitivity and all of those things. And then, like, I started to feel better. And then he said that about the borderline. And I also felt better. Like, although I really have to tell you, and maybe you can, like, test that for yourself, how these things feel different inside. High sensitivity feels a bit, High intelligence feels, Autism feels, Borderline feels, you know? And that's, like, the frames we gave them as a society. Yeah? Like, I think the people that mostly are considered crazy or like, oh, she's such a bitch or whatever, are the borderline people in our society. And I think they're really misjudged and mistreated. But anyways, like, the main reasons why I don't think that I have borderline still is because I don't do these things. Plus, also, with a borderline brain, your mood shifts are, like, physical. Let's say, like, there is some, like, molecule in your brain that doesn't work right anymore, and then you suddenly get angry, or you get, like, you rile up, or you get very emotional. And I don't have that. My emotional reaction is always towards something that happens on the outside. It might not be visible or perceivable for anybody else but me, but when I have strong emotions, it's a reaction towards something that's happening. It's not only in my brain. Although maybe to the others it appears as if I go crazy for nothing, I always know what triggered me. And that's something that borderline people don't have. Like, it's maybe there is something that triggered them, but usually they don't really can pinpoint it down. So yeah, now I have this test here that I of course will do, and then I will let you know if maybe but I think, like, as he said, with the autistic like tendency, that is like my unique state of mind, there is maybe a tendency towards borderline that I just like, maybe I have it like under so much, let's say, control, although I really don't like that word, because I just learn all these techniques and I worked so much with who I am and what I am. Because also interesting is that, like, my body is really sick still, but I do much better. Like, although the house I live in still triggers me and I have to live here like 1 more month because I didn't find a flat so far, it's still, I can work with it now. I can be with it. Like, of course it's good that I see that there's an end to it, which makes it easier. But I was really able to like work through the triggers, work through what was triggered, and find ways how to release or regulate myself when, like, release my emotions or regulate myself even when I'm in an environment that constantly triggers me. So I feel much better and I'm really happy about that. And I feel it's also because like I just have like all these techniques on my hands that, like, to work with things instead of like trying to push them away or just get out of them as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think that was it for this week. I just wanted to share with you like the whole progress. And as soon as I did that borderline test, I will tell you a little bit more about that too. Yeah, I think next week will be about that, unless you give me a topic. And yeah, like, what I also took away maybe from this whole thing is I wasn't sure at first if I want to like proceed. So I just talked to him and it was like, yeah, like this borderline thing would be like 2 more sessions. And I was like, okay, now I'm at it already. I have to stay here in this flat like for 1 more month anyway, so I'm close to the therapist still. And he knows me now. He talked to my mom about my childhood, so it's best to like walk through this. And then like if with the borderline it's also that I like maybe have this little tendency, but it's good. I know in the end what I have. I can still do like a proper intelligence test somewhere, but like understanding that I'm hypersensitive because I process so much information. Because like high sensitivity never really did it for me, because there was something more. And I feel like it still leads to clarity, although it might be another clarity than I expected it to be. So yeah, I think it's very interesting to look at this, at the mechanics of this diagnostical process and everything. Although I still believe that it would be so much better if we could just, look at the brain of an individual and see how the brain works in certain situations. Because I feel like there you could like see better. I don't know if they can see all of it. I don't know if they can like see with the high intelligence, but for sure they can see ADHD. And I believe that would be such a better way of diagnosing, because like just like looking at how somebody behaves with other people, I'm not sure that that's the best way to diagnose psychological issues. But yeah, we're so at the beginning of understanding the chemicals of our brains and like what that all does together, that I think it still is a long way to go there. Like if we even need it, right? So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you stay in the loop, although I'm not autistic. And yeah, I hope to hear you next week, and I wish you a lovely weekend ahead. Sending much love and best wishes. Bye bye.